afternoon, everyone. Hello. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host. Thank you for joining us for another Flycast Partners webinar. Today's web presentation is Workload Automation, There's a Better Way, presented by none other than Joey Robichaux. Joey is a software consultant at BMC Software and has been in the IT industry for almost 4 decades now. He has worked extensively in pre- and post-sales implementations, mainly with Fortune 1000 clients. So Joey is focused on corporate enterprise applications, implementations, workload automation, application life management, testing and monitoring, including end-user experience, quality assurance, server monitoring, network monitoring, load and functional testing, Java application performance, requirements and change management, testing management, triage, and troubleshooting. That is a mouthful. So to say the very least, I think Joey knows what he's talking about when it comes to this topic of discussion. Before we get started, Joey, let me introduce our organization, Flycast Partners. We're here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space. We took the best ideas from these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become the leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services, training in ITSM, ITAM, workload automation spaces, using nothing but ITIL best practice. Our professional services can easily scale up or down in order to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of size or complexity or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing administration and support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on your normal day-to-day operations, saving you time and money. Please visit our website at www.flycastpartners.com or feel free to call us directly at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. And this is just one of many weekly webinars that you can attend. We encourage you to utilize our website for researching industry white papers, training that is available from ITIL to ITSM tools, assistance with professional services, some solution finder. It can be helpful in getting through all the red tape of what tool is going to be the best for you and what's going to work best for your organization. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to none other than Joey. Joey, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be with us today.
Hey, Rich, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can kick things off here because I tend to be PowerPoint challenged at times.
It looks good from here.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I coming across all right?
Loud and clear.
All right, fabulous. Let me give you a little idea of what I want to do during this webinar. I have a short slideshow that I want to show you just to tell you a little about BMC's Control-M product, what workload automation product, and what it adds value-wise to a business. I mean, we can think about job schedulers. Well, you know, it schedules jobs. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. And Control-M and BMC have kind of latched onto the key points that really are going to add a lot of value to an enterprise. We're going to go through that slideshow, and then I'm going to jump into the product, which is our newest release, version 9. We just added a fix pack to it the other day, so it's the latest and greatest version of version 9. So let me go ahead and jump into things here. And I want to start off thinking where a lot of people are right now. Okay, they're doing job scheduling. They may be using cron, they may be using Windows Task Scheduler. Maybe you've got some PeopleSoft, so you're using the PeopleSoft scheduler. Maybe you're really, far along and you've got big data going and you're using Hadoop and Uzi, that scheduler. You may be using the SAP scheduler. You may be running SQL agent jobs and so on like that. Well, that's all fine, and you can do job scheduling that way. But there's a couple of big problems here. One is that at any point in time, it's hard to tell what's running. There's no one place you can go to see everything. You have to go into a lot of different products, maybe ask a lot of different people to find out what's going on. So it's hard to get that information. It's even harder to make these products work with each other. So you might have a big data project and a PeopleSoft project. They don't know about each other. They're using different schedulers. Maybe they're both waiting on a file transfer to happen that's using another scheduler. So we have 3 different things. They're not talking to each other. So we can't see what's happening, and we cannot easily manage and monitor what's going on. So what BMC and Control-M does to give you to add value to this particular thing, we give you an enterprise-wide view. And I'm going to show you our architecture in a little while, and you'll see how we can do this. We'll show you everything that's going on, all of your workload across your entire enterprise, all of your different platforms. We don't care what type of hardware you're running on, if you're Linux, Unix, Windows, AS400, mainframe, and so on, many other flavors as well. We really don't care. They're just jobs to us. We can create dependencies and relationships between all those jobs. So we can say when this file transfer finishes, go ahead and fire off this PeopleSoft string and go ahead and fire off this big data string. So I can come into one place and see all of this happening. The people who are accustomed to doing PeopleSoft scheduling or maybe big data scheduling, they'll find it very comfortable to use Control-M because we integrate naturally with those particular products. And it's kind of like scheduling with those products, except it's even easier to do. So we give you that enterprise-wide view where anybody can come in, anyone has permissions, let me rephrase that, can come in and see everything that's going on. So it's a real easy way to monitor your entire enterprise workflow. Since we're watching what's happening, we know what happened today, we know what happened yesterday, we know what happened the day before that. So we know the history of your workflow, we know how it normally performs. And there's a lot of neat things we can do with that. Troubleshooting is pretty easy. We can go back to any particular day and see things. But even more than that, one of the things you quite often want to know in a workflow is, when are my jobs running out of norm? When are they wacky? When are they running longer than they should? When are they running shorter than they should? If you're doing scripting or using a lot of other tools, you typically have to pick a number out of the air and say, well, it should run in half an hour, so if it's taking more than 45 minutes, maybe that's a problem. Okay, well, maybe it is, but you just picked a number out of the air. Control-M, since we're watching everything that runs as it runs, we know how it performs, and so we can tell you what's normal. Control-M knows that already. You don't have to tell us. So you can say things like, let me know when it's 20% more than normal, whatever normal might happen to be. I don't have to worry about that. Control-M's going to take care of that for me. Let me know when it's 50% less than normal, because maybe that means I've got a null input file in there or something like that. So we can intercept those type of errors early in your job stream, in your workload stream, rather than waiting until later until they ripple forward and cause a big problem later on. Another thing, oh, and by the way, while I'm thinking about normal is different things at different times of the year. You know, you have your regular daily processing, that takes a certain amount of time to do, but your weekend processing may take a little longer. Your month-end processing takes a little longer still. Your quarter-end processing takes even longer, and so on like that. Control-M can keep track of all of these different normals and apply the appropriate one at the appropriate time for you. So that's kind of neat. That's kind of handy. Another thing we can do with knowing what your history is, knowing what normal is you can do some predictive analysis. You can do some forecasting. You can say, well, okay, if I take tonight's workflow that hasn't run yet, and I vary some things. Let's say I'm going to take this machine, and because we're doing some work on it, I know it's going to run 20% slower than it normally does. And I also know that this database is not going to be available between 11 at night and 1 in the morning. And I also know that this particular application is that, you know, they're not going to transmit the file when they should, so it's not going to start until 2 hours later than it normally does. So if I vary those things and everything else remains normal, what's going to happen to my deadlines? Am I going to be able to hit them or not? Am I going to meet my service level agreements? So we can do that type of forecasting and let you know ahead of time before you run into issues so you can try and do something about it. Go ahead and allow for that. Okay. Let me give you a little case study of something we see happening a lot. You have a bunch of jobs running, you have a bunch of workflow running, and things fail. Okay. So something fails and you get an alert, somebody gets working on it, they start fooling with it. A little while later, another thing fails, somebody gets involved, they start working on it. Something else fails later on, we open a trouble ticket, somebody gets woken up, they start fooling with it. Okay. Well, this is a typical workflow that you might see a lot of people doing. One thing that you might ask yourself is, when we're working on these issues, how important are they in the overall scheme of things? Are these important problems, or are they something that could wait until tomorrow to deal with, or maybe later on? Maybe we don't need to deal with them right away. One of the things you can do in Control-M And this is really important when you've got a large workflow, hundreds or thousands of jobs running. It's hard to look at 1,000 jobs and make any sense of it. It's just a lot of stuff. So Control-M makes it very easy to break your workflow into different services. And then you can monitor those services as opposed to monitoring many, many jobs. We had a customer we were talking to a couple of months ago who was running 25,000 jobs a day. But when the dust settled, they really only had 13 business services that they cared about. So we were able to split that into those services. It made their monitoring so much easier. That added a lot of value to them. We're going to go ahead and we can create those services for you. We have something called Batch Impact Manager with Control-M. What you do is you point to your most critical job that must complete by some particular time. You use Batch Impact Manager, point to that job when you're creating your workflow. Control-M will then plot the backflow. It says, okay, in order to hit this job, I have to run these jobs, and I have to run these jobs, and I have to succeed in these jobs, and I have to get these jobs to run successfully, all in a timely manner in order to hit my deadline. Okay? So if you look at these jobs that failed, none of them are on this critical path. They're just jobs that are out there that, yeah, I mean, we're running them, so they're important, but they're not critical to our business. Okay? So we want to pay special attention to these critical jobs. So what Control-M will do is let us create a service. We'll give this thing a service name. We might call it payroll or shipping or inventory or something like that. It has to complete by a certain time. Control-M is going to watch all of these jobs as they're running. At any point, if it detects that there may be an issue, it's going to let us know at that point in time instead of waiting until 6:30 in the morning when it's too late to do anything about it. So we might notice that this Java process at 2:30 in the morning is running longer than it normally does. And we know that because we know how long it normally runs. Control-M does that for you. We'll go ahead and alert you at 2:30 in the morning. Not that you're late, because you haven't missed your deadline yet. I mean, it's not until 6:30. But you are in danger of missing that deadline unless you do something about it. So we'll go ahead and flag you. We'll alert you. We can send trouble tickets, emails, alert logs, however you want to be alerted about that particular thing. And we can do it automatically on any of these jobs within this workflow. Okay? Now, we can monitor that workflow in a lot of different ways. One way we can do it is by just looking at the service names. So here's just the services that we've defined. And we can say, okay, this string of services, which is 34 jobs, is completed okay. This one is okay. It's not completed yet, but we're not in any trouble. Everything's running timely. Here we got one that ended too quickly. We might want to take a look at that. Maybe we had a null input file. Here's our service that's running late. We've got a job running long. We've only, 10 of 18 jobs into it. And we have 42 minutes and 27 seconds to address the problem before we're going to miss our deadline. Okay, so we know how long we have to take care of this. This is a much easier way to monitor workflow than it is to look at a whole string of jobs and figure out, what's going on by having to look at each one. Now, this is a service view in our GUI. We really don't license our GUI, so you can install it on however many places you need to. But some places, people who need this information, that you really don't want to give them a GUI. So they can get to that same information through a mobile device or through a browser. Control-M comes with something, or we have something called self-service, which is a feature that supports this. So using self-service, you can either go to a URL with a browser on your home desktop, if you will, or you can load up an app on your smartphone or your tablet, okay, iPhone or Android devices. And this gives you the same exact information that you would have had if you were using the GUI. We see an issue, we can drill into that issue to get more details about it. When we're getting those details, we can look at the logs, we can look at the output, we can look at any variables, we can look at a script that may be going on. We can give different permissions and rights to different users. Because to use self-service, you have to authenticate yourself when you come in. We're going to check that authentication to decide what you're permitted to do. If you're a technical user, maybe like a DBA or something like that, we're going to go ahead and give you more permissions. So we might say, okay, a DBA can kill a job, he can rerun a job, he can set a job to okay, because he's a technical person. He's going to be the guy we're going to ask to resolve an issue anyway. We could give this to our regular customers, non-technical customers, and just remove most of the permissions. So they might have a look but don't touch type thing. So what this means, the value here is that, first off, the people who need to deal with the issue can deal with it no matter where they are, no matter when they are. We give them mobile access to everything. The people who need the information They can get the information, again, no matter when they are, no matter where they are. They don't have to call operators and developers and product managers, application managers to find out what's going on. They can just go to a URL, pop open their cell phone, and get that information right away. So this saves you a lot of time, and it gives you back a lot of operator time where they normally might spend fielding phone calls. Excuse me a second. Okay. So that's kind of self-service. I lost my cursor there. There it is. Okay. So here we're doing special things with the permissions that we may have using our mobile devices. So why consider Control-M? And here's one thing I always worry about when I'm looking at a product. Where am I going to find myself painted into a corner? Yeah, I know all the things that people say that it can do. That's very nice. But what can it not do that's going to catch me later on? And the nice thing about Control-M is we really haven't run into that. We don't care what type of hardware you're running on. We don't care what type of applications you're doing. We can mix and match all of these guys. We have about 30 applications we support out of the box. We also have an application integrator tool that's built into Control-M that lets you add your own applications, whether they be third-party applications like maybe Bond or J.D. Edwards, or maybe they're custom applications that you have in your shop that have been written internally. We can add them to Control-M just like they're any one of the other Control-M applications. We can mix and match them, so we can do web services that are calling Tivoli, that are doing some Hadoop, that's doing some cloud stuff. We really don't care in Control-M. So you can always use the information that you have, the tools that you have, and mix them together in Control-M. And then, again, from a high level, from an enterprise-wide view, we can see everything. It's really easy to set up Control-M workflows, and we're going to do this for real in a little bit. Basically, you grab a job type, and you can create your own job types if you want to. You drag it, you grab what you want, you drag and drop it onto a blank template, blank workspace. Once you've done that, you then configure your job. I want to run a batch file. Here's the name of the batch file. I want to do a stored procedure. Here's the name of the stored procedure. I want to run this on this machine. I want to run that on that machine. I want to have them be dependent on each other. I draw arrows in between the jobs to show the dependencies. So it's very easy, very simple to use. We have the training videos built into the product itself. You click the little icon, and the training videos will pop up. So it's very easy to get up to speed and productive quickly with Control-M. Here is that application integration. Actually, this is an application integration tool. We have something called Workload Change Manager that is really handy for people who have dynamic workflow. And by dynamic, I mean they may need to make modifications every week, maybe 3 to 5 different modifications, or add new jobs to their workflow. That can be problematic simply because of the entire iterative process of development, where users write requirements and developers look at them and try to figure out what they mean, and then operators look at the end result and say, gee, I wish they'd use better site standards and naming conventions. And support people look at the end product and say, well, where's all my documentation I need to support this? By using Workload Change Manager, we get everybody using the same tool all throughout all those 4 products. So everybody's speaking the same language. We can enforce site standards so things are done in the appropriate way for your enterprise. By having the users and the developer use the same tool to create workflows, the users create the workflows, the developers sanity check them to make sure they're okay. By having them use the same tool, we eliminate all of that. Oh, I don't know what you meant here. I don't know what you meant here. What do you mean age? I forgot to age the counts. All of that iterative back and forth between development and users just doesn't happen anymore. So we've seen up to 80 and even 90% in some cases reduction in the amount of time necessary to create a workflow. We've had users who were taking about 2 weeks to create a workflow. That's now down to a couple of hours for them by using Workload Change Manager. So if you have a dynamic environment, this is something that's really handy to have. Our application integration tool lets you create your own job types. If you have let's say if you're using a Bond. Bond has a number of different functions that you can call, but you can also call them from a command line. They have a command line tool that lets you execute Bond functions. Well, okay, we'll just go ahead and define that. We'll say I'm going to create a job type. It's going to use a command line. I'm going to create a form, and I'll define the variables that are going to be entered in on the form. And then when I'm using Control-M, this is the form that's going to appear. It looks just like all of the other Control-M forms when I'm using job types. So it's very easy to create integrations into different applications. when you're a Control-M customer, you have access to our communities off of our website. In the communities, we encourage people to share the different application integrations that they've created. So there's a number of them out there, which even if it's something that you don't need to pull in, it's nice to look at just to get an example of how people did particular things. Okay, we do have full audit and compliance in Control-M. We're always watching everything that's happening as you're executing your workflow. Here's what I really wanted to show you, the architecture. Okay, Control-M is a true three-tier application. So at the highest tier, we have what we call our Enterprise Manager. It's basically our master database of everything that we know, along with the logic to maintain that. Underneath that, we have what we call a Control-M server. That Control-M server talks to the Enterprise Manager. It also talks to one or more Control-M agents or agentless machines. Now, we can also use a mainframe, and a mainframe is kind of a special situation. It's kind of a server and an agent at the same time. All of these can be virtual. All of these can even live on the same machine if need be. Okay? When you get to the point where you need to scale up for whatever reason, you just add more Control-M servers and more Control-M agents. Now, the beauty of this particular architecture is, well, one, it's very easy to update. It's very easy to maintain. It's very easy to scale. We can now push out fixed packs to all the agents from a central repository. It's very network friendly. We don't have a lot of traffic going on back and forth, because basically the agents are running the jobs that we tell them to, and they're only sending information back whenever they need to. But if I'm using the GUI, here's a little guy using his laptop, he's hooking into the Enterprise Manager to see what's happening to his workflow. He can see everything underneath the Enterprise Manager. So this is how we achieve that enterprise-wide view. You can be a global setup where you have machines around the world, using agents around the world. That Enterprise Manager can be in a single location. You hook into there, and I see everything. So I can monitor and manage and maintain everything from one dashboard, no matter what the application is, no matter what the hardware is. We do have a conversion tool. We convert a lot of competing products. About every other day, I think it's every 2 days, we will convert a customer who's using a competing product to Control-M. So Control-M has a conversion tool to make that a lot easier for you. You basically run your stuff through the conversion utility, and we'll output Control-M job definitions for you. So it makes it very easy to switch from one thing to another, one thing to Control-M. Now, having done that, you may have to go in and tweak them to add things. That quite often there's functionality in Control-M that does not exist in the competing product. So in that case, you would have to go and add that functionality. But we can get you a lot of the way there with just the converting what's there. Support-wise, I'd love to tell you you'll never have to call tech support, but you know we do live in the real world, so we know that at times that you're going to have questions. You're going to want to know when the next release is. You want to know about advanced features. You may have an issue that you need to report. What I can tell you is that if that does happen, you'll always be able to reach someone on the telephone, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's part of your standard maintenance, full-time telephone support. Okay? So there's a bunch of reasons why you should consider Control-M, and they all sound really neat. But to me, the real reason is not what we say about Control-M. It's what other people say about Control-M. So we're looking at the Gardner Magic Quadrant for workload automation tools. And by the way, this is the most current one. They haven't done another one since February 2012 because it really hasn't changed any. We're in the top right-hand corner, which is where you want to be if you're a software vendor. So we lead the pack in the ability to execute. Our software really does the things we say it does. We also lead the pack in the completeness of vision. So the things you want to do today, yep, we're doing that all right. Things you want to do next year, we're already there as well. Things you may want to do 2 or 3 years down the road, we're working on that. So we understand this niche very well. Control-M has been out nearly 30 years. We have more developers and support people dedicated full-time to Control-M than all of these other guys put together. Okay, this is a major product at BMC. And by the way, we are now the market-leading product. We took the largest chunk of the market share, I think, sometime last year. And so we're continuing to grow. The overall workload automation market is growing about somewhere between 5 and 7% a year. Control-M's market share is growing about 15% a year. So we're growing faster than the market, which means we're taking market share from our competitors. Okay, and that's kind of the little slideshow there. Let me go ahead and bounce out of this. And I'm going to jump into the product itself to show you what it looks like. And I'm going to try not to drown you with features and functions and things like that. I just want to give you a little bit to let you get a feel for what it's like to use Control-M. Okay, so this is our GUI here. I'm hooked into our demo environment. This is version 9 Fixpack 1, the latest one that we have out there. We have a number of different categories down this left-hand side. So I've got like planning and monitoring and history and forecast and so on like that. As I go to each one of these categories, this ribbon bar across the top changes. So at any point in time, it's only showing me the functionality that I need to use at that point in time. If I don't remember how to do something, I've got the training videos built into it. So I can go ahead and pop up a video that shows me how to do whatever it is that I don't quite remember how to do. Let's say I want to create a workflow. So I might start with a blank workspace, and then I'm going to drag and drop job types to that. So I might grab maybe an OS level job, which might be like a batch file or something like that. I'll drop that into my workspace, and I'll start configuring it. I'll give it a meaningful folder name because all of these jobs are going to be in a folder because they all are going to be similar to each other. Maybe I'll call it payroll. Then I have my actual job itself. I can create a job name, and I should call it something other than OS job number 1. I can create a description. If I'm using site standards, I can define job names that must follow a certain criteria. I can define fields that are mandatory. When I'm creating site standards, I normally make description a mandatory field so that an operator can look at it and very easily see what the job is doing. What kind of job what do we want to do in this OS level job? I just want to run a command line. Where do I want to run that at? Well, I can run on any machine to control. In fact, let me go to a full-size screen here. Did I do that right? I don't want the console view. Where's full size? There it is. No, I think I messed that up too. There we got that back. Okay, now I got a full-size screen here. Okay. Where do I want to run? I can run on any machine that Control-M knows about. Okay. Or I'm just going to run on the default machine right here. What user do I want to run as? Because some users have certain rights and permissions. Typically, if you're using site standards, we'll default to some general user that runs everything. Okay. I've already said this is going to be in a payroll category, but maybe I have different types. Maybe I have application is going to be for contractors, payroll, and it's going to be hourly. What that does is I can come back later and say, hey, show me all the hourly payroll people that I have. Show me all the contractors that are hourly. Show me all the jobs that are associated with that. So this just gives me some filtering I can use later on. There's other stuff I can enter about on this. I can attach some documentation, which again, I typically make this required when I'm defining workflows. I can pass parameters if I need to. I can pass certain variables or what have you. Okay, I want to go ahead and schedule this job now. When do I want to run it? Well, I can run it every day. I can run it just manually whenever I decide it needs to run. I can run on certain days of the month or maybe certain days of the week within certain months. I might want to use a calendar. Maybe I've defined some calendars out there, like here we got holidays and all days, and people have a lot of different calendars out here. So I could pick one of those calendars, but I'm going to just leave that blank. I'm going to put this back to manual. I can also do some advanced scheduling. I can say things like, I want to run on the 1st and the 15th, unless that's a weekend, and in that case, I want to run on the preceding Friday. So we can get very specific, very fancy with that if we need to. Honestly, whenever it gets real fancy, I just build a calendar because it gives me less headaches doing it that way. If we care when it runs during that day, we can enter in a window. Otherwise, it's just going to run as early as it can that day. Is it a cyclical job? Is it one that runs over and over again, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes? We can define that as well. Okay. Now, at this point, what I've done is job scheduling. I've said I want to run this at this particular time. It's a little nicer than a lot of other job schedulers, but it's really just job scheduling. This is workload automation. What do you want to do after the job runs? Okay. Because when you run a job, a lot of different things can happen. It can fail. It can end, and we don't care if it failed or not. It can end successfully. Maybe it ended with a certain completion code. Maybe it's executed a certain number of times in a row or rerun a certain number of times in a row. Maybe it ran successfully but didn't generate any output. Maybe it's failed a certain number of times in a row, or maybe it ran okay, but the output contains some word or phrase that we want to key on. If any of those things happen, what do you want to do? Well, we might want to notify someone. We might want to send an email, a trouble ticket, a text message. If it's not, and we can do multiples of these. So maybe this job isn't that important, so it fails, so I will notify somebody, but then I'll also set it to OK. After I notify somebody, I'll add another do on there. So I'll do a notify, and I'll maybe send an email or open a trouble ticket or something like that. And what this does, if you can think of an operator run sheet that says, hey, when this happens, do this. When this happens, do that. When this happens, do that. That's what we're doing here. We're automating what the operator would normally have to do. So the type of actions he might take, Control M is going to do that for you to the best extent that makes sense. And let me give you an example. Suppose you're doing a file transfer, and your file transfer fails, and the operator calls you and says, hey, your file transfer just failed. What are you most likely going to tell them to do to try to resolve the issue? You're going to say, well, okay, it's a file transfer. It's half black magic, half voodoo. Go ahead and just run the thing over again, and it'll probably work next time. And you're right, it probably will work next time. So instead of having the operator call you and you having to tell him that, maybe you're not there when he calls, so it takes a little while to get that communication going, we'll just do it automatically. So we'll say, hey, if it fails, rerun the job. If the job ends not okay, rerun the job. But suppose that rerun fails because there's some deeper issue about it. What we can do then is say, if it fails twice in a row, we can assume our rerun didn't work. So now we're going to do something else. Maybe we'll run a diagnostic job that's going to collect some information and then send that to some developer and then send them a notification that we're doing that. Maybe it's a situation where we say, okay, whenever this fails and the rerun doesn't work, run this job that's going to reset some switches or recycle some things, and then rerun the job. That'll probably take care of it. So we'll go ahead and do that automatically. And then at a third level, if it fails 3 times in a row, we know that nothing else happened, so now we're going to take other actions or what have you. So we're going to automate that process right there. People have found that they've been able to, I don't want to say eliminate operators, but reduce the need for operations staff up to 80%, which means I can take those operators and repurpose them doing things that are more analytical rather than having them do things that are just kind of rote, follow the instructions type stuff. Let me show you what a monitoring view looks like. Here I've got 294 jobs, which is not a lot of jobs. Okay, the most number of jobs I've ever heard of in Control M is like 3.5 million. So Control M scales up, scales down, and it's the same product. We don't have different Control M products for different workload limits. It's really just a licensing issue when you run additional stuff. So I can scroll around and look for my individual jobs. I can set filters, and I can say, well, I really only want to see this particular job right here. I want to find this particular job. But still, this is accurate, but not necessarily helpful, if that makes any sense. So I can look at jobs, I can look at the output, I can look at the logs, but this is a whole bunch of stuff out here. Okay, so I might find it more meaningful to monitor this in terms of services. And we had talked a little bit about this earlier. So here's my batch impact manager services that Control M built automatic for me. And it tells me, hey, I'm okay here, service is late, job ran too long. Do we have any that failed? No, we have a job ran too long. So I can, at a glance, get an idea of what's happening. If I see something that I want to dig into and get more information, I can drill into that to find the details about that particular job and maybe query it and find out why it's having an issue. Now, if you have an operations staff, like a NOC, they may use this. Probably some manager is going to use this because this is what he cares about, or how are my services that I'm responsible for doing. Operations is more interested in, do I have any issues that I need to take care of? So I have an alerts log. So this might be something they put up on the wall somewhere. You can actually detach this screen and have it pop up in its own window. So I can look at various things. So I've got an issue here, here's the issue, here's where it's happening at. I can go ahead and try to resolve it. We're going to note who takes action. We have auditing pretty much always on. So when something happens to something, we can give you a report that tells you this happened and so did this to address it at this particular time. So you can always track what happened to your workflow as you're going along. Let's see. Now, I know that nobody remembers how I did anything just now, okay? And that's okay. But did you get a feel for the level of effort involved to accomplish this? You notice what scripting language I used? Didn't use one. Control-M doesn't need a scripting language. It's all just drag and drop, draw pictures. Let me put another job in here. In fact, I'm just going to copy, cut and paste the same job and stick it out here. I'm going to create a dependency. Okay, dependency done. So this is something that's almost impossible. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it requires a lot of scripting to do if you're on separate machines. This might be on a Windows machine. This might be on a Unix box. In order to achieve that, I've got to go through some hodgepodge of semaphore files, or maybe I assign values to something in a database that somebody's looking at. So I'm constantly looking to see if it's ready for me to go ahead and kick off. Control-M, I just draw an arrow, and I've taken care of all the lag time. I don't have to schedule times. So it's not like I'm saying, well, this is going to start at 7, and this will start at 7:30 just to give me time. No, if this one finishes at 7:18, this fires off at 7:18:01. Okay, so we squeeze all the dead time out of your workflow, make things run much more efficiently. By the way, when you're looking at your monitoring view, let me pop back over here. This is something new we've added in version 9. You can look at the individual jobs, but you can also look at a Gantt chart of everything. And I really like the Gantt chart because it lets you see where you have gaps. So here we got a long gap, between this time and that time. So I might want to rearrange my workflow to take advantage of that gap right there, and maybe try to shift some workflow into that area there. Now, I want to show you one other thing here, if I can find where I put it. I think it's in here. It does not appear to be in here, so it's going to be in Internet Explorer. Okay. This is our self-service tool. This is our mobile portal. I have to authenticate myself to get in here. And by the way, we do hook into Active Directory, so we can get authentications from there. And I'm now looking at the same information that I would have seen in that service level view earlier. So I'm looking at my Batch Impact Manager jobs. If I see something that has an issue, here's one here. And it's actually not an issue. It's just not all the way complete yet. I can drill into this guy. I can get more information about him, see the actual detail. I have something that finished up here. Let's go take a look at it. It finished. And these are actually little folders that have a lot of jobs within them. Let's take a look at something here. We have a DB SQL load, so I can look at the output. And there may or may not be output here. Some of these are dummy jobs. So, okay, I'm selecting a bunch of things from this guy. Now, something else I can do is we have something called Workload Archiving. And I'm just about finished here. I know we're coming close on time here. Workload Archiving gives you the ability to keep years and years and years worth of textual information, the log and the output from your jobs. Control-M will always keep things like the job status, did it succeed or not, what type of failure did it have if it failed. But logs and output, we typically let them slide off after 30 days or so, depending on your configuration, simply because they can, output and logs are ASCII information or EBCDIC information, depending where you're coming from. That can get really sizey, they can get really big, take up a lot of space, and it might be, and we don't compress it in our database. What Workload Archiving does is it creates a separate database only for the textual information. We'll extract that stuff off, put it in our archiving database. We compress it when we do that, so now, it's textual compression, so I mean, we may go down to 20% of what it was earlier size-wise. We do all the joins for you, so you never see this happening. As far as you know, you're just looking at the same database that you were looking at originally. We'll join the textual information with the detailed information, other information. So I can look at the logs from however many days. I can also decide what types of jobs I want to archive, because I probably don't want to archive everything. Okay, I just want to archive the things that someone's going to ask me about. Hey, what happened last year? We're being audited. We need to prove what happened 2 years ago. We have a penalty if we can't provide this particular financial information from last summer. All of those type of things, we can define those workflows and say, archive these particular workflows for 2 years, 10 years, 6 months, whatever's appropriate, so that we're only keeping the stuff that you really care about. We can not only show you that stuff, but we can let you compare differences, maybe in the log, let's see. and we'll do a little diff in here and show you what's different between the particular jobs. We also give the ability to search your archives. And if you think about it, if I come up to you and I drop a 3-foot high stack of papers on your desk and say, okay, here's your last year's history, what you want is somewhere in there, I really haven't done you any favors, okay? Yeah, I've given you the data, but you can't, it's hard to find. So we give you a search facility. So you can search from date ranges, you can search for words or phrases in either the output or the log, you can search individual jobs. Note that we've got the application and sub-application. This is something earlier where we did contractor and hourly. So if I can search all the, the contractor jobs, all the hourly jobs, I can search all the jobs that ran on particular dates, jobs that were written by run as particular users. Makes it very easy for me to winnow down to reduce the amount of stuff that I do have to search through. Okay? And that is archive searching in self-service. And by the way, I'm using this on a browser. I'm going to a URL right here. But if I had this on my cell phone, I could get to the same information and do the same stuff with it. If I had this on my iPad, I could get to the same information and do the same stuff. So mobile access is always available to you with Control-M self-service. And having said that, that's kind of the end of where I wanted to go. Giving you an idea of some of the value in Control-M and why it's the market-leading workflow automation tool, and some of the features that we have in the current product. So, Rich, if there's anything you'd like to toss in here, have at it.
Well, I have been trying to entice people to ask questions throughout the presentation. We do have a couple moments for questions, so if you do have a question, go ahead and type it in the Q&A section and the bottom of this presentation. We'll be more than happy to go ahead and try to answer as many as we can within the amount of time that we have allocated. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time to ask. As far as changes are concerned, with the latest version of Control-M, for anybody that has seen the older version of Control-M, what would you say has been the greatest difference between those two? I mean, has it been that big of a difference, or is it just more of a streamlining things, or what is the biggest change you think?
Sure, that's a good question. First off, if you've seen version 8 and version 9 look very much alike, but the two biggest changes to me, one is we now have high availability built into the product. So if you don't have clustering or something like that, you don't have to go out and buy third-party software. We've got high ability failover and database replication built into Control-M, so we can fail over, we can fail back for you for that type of security. The other big event for me is that in Control-M, with the current license, we don't limit the number of environments you have. So you can have a demo environment and a test environment and a sandbox and a dev and production and all of that. So you might be making your changes, your new workflow in sandbox. And then when you're done there, you need to move them to dev. And then when you're done there, you need to move them to test. And then when you're done there, that type of thing. So we need to promote from one environment to the other. That's always been a little tricky. We could do it, but it was kind of a manual process. We now have promotion built into the product as well. So you can elect to promote from one environment to the other. And even best, when you promote from one to the other, you quite often have to make changes in your workflow. So in my test environment, all my databases are called testDB, whatever. But in prod, they're all called prodDB, whatever. So I need to go and change all of that. I always run against this server in dev, but I run against this server in prod. I run as this user in sandbox, but I need to run as this user in testing. You can create promotion rules. And when you go ahead and say, I want to do a promotion, you can elect which set of rules you want to apply, and Control-M will automatically make those modifications and changes for you, which greatly increases the product of the stuff that you're moving, because you don't have to worry about manual fumble fingering and things like that. Those seem to be the two things.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really like those.
It's great that you're able to explain that so easily and quickly, because we're actually out of time at this point. Yeah. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go over this with us and show us how awesome this product can be and how it can benefit any business out there. I want to thank those of you that attended our webinar today, and please feel free to reach out to us directly on any questions about Control M at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278, and we'll be sure to try and get the answers for you as quickly as possible. If you'd like a demo, give us a call. Email us. We're more than happy to take your email and answer any questions you have as well. On that note, I want to wish everybody a great day, and thanks again for your time.